ještě jako takový auditorium. Pěkný.
Tam to bylo fajn. Mně se mi líbilo, tam jsem byl i na koncertě. Mají tam byli ještě výtah,
Almost. Sorry.
Okay. So welcome for the next session. The talk will be given by Stephen Gallagher, who probably everybody knows already. And the talk will be about Addon Modularity through the lens of the module author.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. That is not picking up. Is that any better? Yes. All right, good. So, you may notice I don't actually have any slides. And that is because, honestly, what I'd rather do is, rather than give you a pre-planned talk, I'm going to mostly tell you a story and then give you a demo. So, this is actually, this talk was originally scheduled to be given by someone else, and it was going to be Fedora Modular Server in the real world. And then we didn't ship Fedora Modular Server, so we scrambled in the last couple of weeks to put together a plan for what we would show here, and it's basically going to be a deep dive into exactly how you create a module in the new approach that we've just started launching. So as I'm writing this, I'm thinking, so what should I do? What would be a good real-world example to modularize that I can also actually use when in Fedora 28, something that would benefit users? So I have a project that I've been maintaining as a hobby in EPEL 7 for more years than I'd wanted to. That is fairly popular, but it's called ReviewBoard, and it's a web-based code review tool. And the only reason I've been maintaining it in EPEL and not Fedora is that it's been locked on Django 1.6 for years and years. And this is because Django made a bunch of upstream changes between 1.6 and 1.7 that were just completely incompatible with the way ReviewBoard dealt with databases. So I thought, well, what problem is modularity trying to solve? Oh, right, that the version of things that ship with the distribution and the version of things you actually want to run are almost never the same. So I decided to take a shot at packaging a Django 1.6 module for Fedora, and then packaging two versions of the two latest and supported versions of ReviewBoard that can use it. And so I'm going to explore a couple of different concepts, one of which is going to be defaults on the system, and what happens when you have a package that requires a non-default module. But to start, let's take a look at the Django package, the Django module, actually, and see if this is at all readable on here. Can you guys read that? That's good. Okay. So this is in order to build a module, you have to create a module metadata file, and before you start wincing and thinking, oh God, I have to do more work, I'm going to show you that this file is really, oops, I put the wrong one up, didn't I? It's really, really easy. That's the second one. I'll get to that in a minute. So, Django. Some of it is basically boilerplate, and in the case of a Django module, like in case of something like the one I'm about to show you, it's actually going to be possible to auto-generate, and that's something we're building tools to do. But most of it's boilerplate. You know, you have a basic YAML specification of what it is, and then you have a summary and a description, which we can copy straight out of the spec file in the case of a single package module. The license just describes how you want to license the module, not its content. So I'm just, basically I'm saying this module metadata file is MIT. I just picked something out of the hat that was FSF compatible. This dependencies section, well, pretty much does what it says on the box, but we've got work in the pipeline right now for Factory 2.0 to do something called stream expansion, thank you. I was like, it's not stream branching, it's stream expansion, where we'll basically be able to omit this section and have you specify which platforms against it to build, and it'll just go and build 6 of them or 5 of them, however many supported platforms there are out there. References are just informational. So once we get to the profiles, this is where things start to get at least a little bit interesting. One thing that modules offer that something like comps groups or meta packages doesn't as easily is it allows us to specify, I want to enable this module and I want to install a set of packages to accomplish a particular use case. So we, in the case of Django, I set it up so that we have a default profile, which in the absence of any other information from the user, DNF will just fall through and use. It just installs Django. Similarly, I then also created a set of profiles for installing and running development modules, which at that point you probably want the docs on the system. The API section of the modular metadata is new and unique to modules. The concept here is that with modules, if you want to specify, if you have more than one component RPM, if you have, in this case we don't, but I'll show you an example where we do. What you want to do is be able to tell people the set of packages that are produced by the build process of this module, this is actually the set of packages that we are supporting, that we care about. So if I had a series of libraries in here that were there, I could effectively with this tag say, I only care about the Python 2-Django and Python 3-Django outputs, and anything else that came from this module is supported insofar as it enables those 2 packages and not for any other reason, which should give a little bit of a breather to some of the packages. I know that historically, every time I've packaged anything in Fedora, I've never been able to, even once, except for a couple of pieces of software I've written myself, never once been able to put something in Fedora without first putting in at least 2 other libraries. Is that a general experience here? Do you care about those libraries at all? I mean, or are they just there because it lets you put the thing you care about in the cloud? Right. Yes, well, okay, so Petter just touched on it. The problem is that once something is in Fedora today, if it's in Fedora, everything is API. You can't, as soon as I put libfoo into Fedora, somebody else can go and start depending on it, and now I have to support it for them too. With the API specification in the modules, we are expressly stating that this is only intended for the use with this project, and any other use, if you need it, we should either coordinate and pull it out of this module and put it somewhere else and work on it together, or else you should carry your own personal copy in your module, and that these will conflict. So I put this together and I built it, and lo and behold, it actually built, which was nice. And serious props to the MBS, the Modular Build Service team, Ralph Bean, Ron Kalusha, and forget who else is working on that right now. Yeah, quite a few people. But, yeah, not him. He doesn't count. Okay. Getting there. I can, but I was about to talk. Right. Okay. So the component section is, this is the set of packages that you're going to put in put in this module, and they will comprise the module. And rationale is mostly informative for the next person that looks at the module metadata file. There are a couple of really important attributes here, and I'll talk a little more about some of the others when I get to the review board module. But the most important one is ref, which is a Git, it is a Git commitish that refers to a branch or tag or a specific commit in the dist-git repository. So in this case, I have created with the stream branching approach. I created a 1.6 branch from Python Django that I'm owning. That the rest of the Python Django maintainers they don't have to know about or care about. That'll be there just for supporting this module, and it carries. the review board upstream, as it happens, even though Django 1.6 is long end of life upstream, they've been maintaining it for security patches for the last 3 years at least. So in the constraint that it's going to be used for a review board, I'm not terribly uncomfortable pulling this into Fedora. Sure.
You mentioned that ideally you'd want to put a review board in and not care about supporting something like Python or Django specifically for review board because it's an implementation detail for you.
Yeah.
But that package
No. I didn't say. Sorry, I conflated two concepts there. This package I am committed to. I am committing to maintain as it is.
So let's say you want.
If I wasn't, then I would probably have put this in the review board module itself.
Okay, that's what it is.
Right. Sorry, I was unclear on that, so thank you for asking me to clarify. So once I built that in the MBS, I was able to, I would be able to start building the review board package, and this will be the 2.5 review. So this one's going to be a little bit more complicated, but not much. It's ModularMD is actually pretty easy, and like I said, the Django one, we now have a tool, a prototype tool that could have generated that in its entirety from the RPM. With this one, we're setting a build dependency on Django 1.6, and I've got a couple of profiles for the server and client. This one has quite a few more components to it, and you'll notice that as far as the API, I've listed only the top-level review board package. So I actually should have included RB tools, but there's a story behind that. So with these components, we now I have a bunch of stuff here that all of these are packages that exist today in Fedora, and all of these are packages that in the base Fedora repository have moved on well beyond what supported Django 1.6. So I needed to pull in the latest versions of the ones that did.
I had to get a burrito. I'm sorry. Wouldn't want you to go hungry, Matt. Sit down.
You better. I hope I'm getting half.
There's a truck out there. I can give you a ticket.
All right. So basically, all of these are only going to be useful for review board because really anybody else in the distribution that would want to use them is going to be using a newer version. So it seemed reasonable to include them in this module. And so when we want to run review board, it'll just switch to using these. Now you may notice that we now have a build order argument. That is because every module is capable of functioning similar to the way that a Koji chain build would work. We can specify we can specify build order, and any of these that share a build order, the default being 0, will all build in parallel, and then run a create repo, and then build the next level. So in this case, most of these we're able to build directly against Django 1.6, but a couple of them, like Python giblets, actually has to build against. Sorry. Oh yeah, it is Q. It has to build against I think it was multi-select field and Markdown. So at this point in the generation of this talk, I actually discovered that we had okay, thank you for that. That we actually had a bit of a problem with generating build routes in MBS. As of right now, there's a bug in MBS where it will not actually load an older version into the build route, even when you specify it. So that needs to be fixed. For the purposes of this, I went and I used some old style RPM magic to make it show up. I created a virtual provides and then depended on that provides instead of depending on the package name. But that will be fixed before this goes to production, right, Langdon? I should have said before we start asking people to mass create modules. Okay. Okay, so there are workarounds in place, but we'll get there. So. Okay. Yeah, the tool that I was playing around with did not yet have that capability, but as Langdon is pointing out, We have tools that we are readying to make it possible to automatically generate this file as well. So that's going to be pretty exciting, and I think it's going to take away a lot of the panic that I think people were feeling around the Modularity initiative back around Flock. We're really, really fighting to make sure that this is minimally invasive, and so it makes it easy. It makes it really easy for you to switch over to using modules and to get a little more flexibility in your packaging. So. Yeah, so I've gone through the packaging format. I hope for those of you who are still awake, I'm going to give a little bit of a demo I put together for.
Live demo?
I am in fact doing a live demo, so. No, I'm not. I am not doing a live demo of the build. I don't. I'm trying to get people to want to do this. No, actually, we did until very recently have a pretty serious. We had a pretty serious performance problem with the builds, in that they were taking. Yeah, I'm gonna. Yeah, let me just. Hang on. That's not it. Come on. I blame GNOME. Why did? Okay. Why does it do that? Every time I tell it to change. Right. No, I have an extension that's supposed to that does tiling, and it always sends it back to my main monitor, which is not helpful. So, yeah, pretty much. Of course, you can only grab this side. Yeah, live demo, folks. Live demo. So, let's close these. Is that readable?
Yes.
All right. So, I am logged into a virtual machine on which I have I installed Fedora Rawhide a few days ago, and I can prove that. Yay, Fedora 28 Server Edition. And I ran a simple Ansible script that I wrote that I'll share later that does basically all it does is stick a repository and the DNF that is module aware onto the system. And so on this system, pointing at that module which contains Django 1.6, review boards 2.5 and 3.0 with their various profiles. You'll note that I also dropped a system profile for modules onto the system, so that if I were to just do DNF install review board, the package, it will in fact find that and automatically enable the Django 1.6 module. So, yeah. See, it's,
a lot of Python too we're doing.
One thing at a time.
yeah. So it will in fact pull all the appropriate. Yeah, some of this is just because Python, a lot of Python 2 packages have unnecessary dependencies, but it is a nice and useful feature that we are going to be able to specify that individual packages can have defaults that cause non-default modules to be enabled. That I think is going to give us a lot more discoverability for some of these things that would otherwise not be visible. So.
By that you mean review board will be there by default as an available package.
Yes.
But Django 1.6 will not.
Correct. But if you, and then implicitly, if you decide to install Django or just install review board, what you will get is the appropriate version of Django.
But if you want to install Django 1.6, you have to do it differently.
Yes. If you wanted to explicitly install a different version of Django from the default, which is going to be 2.0 in Fedora 28, then you would have to go and module switch manually.
What if you had another app that used a newer version of Django installed?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
What if you had another app that installed that used a newer version of Django?
Previously, it would fail. You would not successfully install review board. It would just say so the question was, what if you had an app that required Django 2.0 on your system and then tried to install review board? And the answer is it would fail just like any other conflict in DNF. Can you speak up a little bit, please?
The rationale section in the Modularity file, is that a duplication of the RPM description?
No, it's meant to be. So the question was, what is the rationale meant for? What is the rationale for the rationale? The rationale for the rationale is, it's basically a comment for the module writers. Yes, it is entirely optional. You can leave it out. It's useful. It's useful to remind yourself why you're carrying this in a module and not somewhere else.
Yeah. So
Sorry?
the reason this is added,
It is mandatory? That's not right. Okay, apparently it's mandatory, but that seems silly.
The reason is we were looking at modularizing content, and with 10,000 plus packages, you look at one and say, who on earth put that in? Why is it still there? Do we still need it? Because there's no way to record why these edge packages were initially added to the system. And rationale gives us a place to remember that information.
Right, I think rationale makes a little more sense when we were planning on modularizing everything. I think it makes less sense now. So maybe we turn that down to optional now.
I don't know if I agree with that, but I mean, I think it's worth discussing.
Okay, we don't actually need to redesign it here in this meeting. Sure, I can do that. So if I wanted to just install Django, I would just do this. And you'll see that that is attempting to pull in Python 3-Django. Meanwhile, what I would otherwise do is, if I want to expressly install the module version, I would do df install @Django :1.6/default. The /default should be optional, but for some reason this particular build of DNF broke that. So, oh right, my default is empty, so it enabled the module and didn't do anything. But I could have done Python 2 development. And there, you'll get. Thanks. All right. Oh, we're out of time? All right.
Mike?
Oh. No, I'm Steve.
I know.